Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
Good morning, everyone. It is Wednesday, May 1st, 2024. My name is John Pieranunzi, and this is the opening swing. The opening swing is a brief game plan for active traders of the futures markets, specifically the S&P 500. Let's begin today, like we always do, with our news. Okay, again today, very little out of Europe, really not much at all. But coming up during the U.S. session, we have MBA mortgage applications, which is already out. We have the ADP employment report at 8:15. ADP is a private payroll company that releases a report, which is kind of a precursor to the NFP, but doesn't always track, but something to be aware of. Treasury refunding, a few announcements out of Treasury land, and then at 9:45 Eastern, we have our PMI manufacturing number. ISM at 10, construction spending at 10, and JOLTS. This sort of slew of numbers is going to be reasonably important. Our petroleum report at 10:30 for those that trade the crude complex, and then the big one, the FOMC announcement at 2. So the general expectation is potentially a little bit of movement when this data comes out, and then maybe we quiet down ahead of the number. But we'll see how that goes. Let's look at the charts. Here's our daily chart, full session candles. So the big area that we've been talking about, obviously the 5126s, which are the prior month's low. We're now in a new month. So this has become, which we kind of suspected, now this is our prior month's low. So we have this as kind of like the bottom area of our balance. We had this 5126s as the upper level, which we tested above and rejected below in a move that I was definitely not anticipating as much as I should have been yesterday, but that's how it goes. But anyway, we've returned to this balance. We're below the 50-60s are the midpoint of the balance. Our settlement yesterday was 50.67. So we have tested the highs, reverted back below the 50% line. And the big question today for me, coming into today, looking at the daily chart, we've already taken the prior day's low after the bell. So the prior day's low is gone. The big question for me coming into today is, do we take this low in the 50-20 area and potentially take this low and continue, take this low, find buyers and revert, or do we get a higher low versus this low and push above the prior settle? That's really the big question for me today. Let's noting that the VPOC of the balance of this area of balance is up here at 5102.25. Convergent members have a mag zone up there. So this is our daily chart. We basically tested the low of this area. We've tested the high. We're back in the middle with numbers ahead. So let's move on. Here we have an hourly chart, kind of showing all of our balance that we're in. The key areas that I've been emphasizing, we have right here, this is about 37s up to 60s, 67s, this rust colored area. This is the midpoint of our balance. Also holds the 50-50 strike, which has gotten a lot of attention. You can see our profile here, pretty blunt, not really a whole bunch, fairly toothy, but does start to get a better taper as we get down below the 37 halves. And really, on this news day, this was our news day, news low, reversion, and this is RTH. The real shut-off valve for the selling came below Millennium. Millennium was really where the buyers firmed up. So that's the Millennium figure is very important. We have our prior week's settle, which is our settle from 2 weeks ago, actually at 0.75, which is untested. So that's a target. And then above we have our prior settlement, which is kind of a bit of an LIS for me going into today. Let's move on to our P&F chart and plan for the day. Okay, so what might we see ahead of the number today? So let's talk about our key areas. We have the overnight low is a key area right here. We have our prior settlement as a key area, which is kind of in confluence with our overnight high. We also have these 22s, which is that swing low. And we have this naked weekly settle. And way down here, we have our 64s, which is our prior month's low and balance low. Way up here, we have our 26s, which is the key area. And then we have our RTH low, prior RTH low, which is just above the overnight low. And we have our magnet zone, which is up here around the blue line, just above century. So these are our key areas. What am I expecting today, most likely ahead of the number? The thing that I'm most expecting, I think that we get some continuation through this overnight low that potentially takes these 22s but reverts ahead of the number. So what I'm most thinking is that we get some type of an open. I think it kind of we get some action in this area. This could also happen pre-open, maybe around ADP we have coming out. And I think we take this low, kind of chops around, maybe tries, gets back, takes these 22s, but I think we find buyers somewhere around there, and we revert higher into our overnight range and potentially start working higher for the prior settle. So the big thing that I'm saying with this, and then I think it kind of balances out here. So the big thing that I'm saying with this is ahead of this number, I think these 22s are likely to get a test and settlement is likely to get a test. Those are the two key areas to be tested. I'm expecting reversion back towards the middle with either. That is, I'm expecting a test here that reverts, or the alternate case will do it as well right here. This would be the blue idea, which could push higher, take the overnight high, maybe settlement, and then revert lower through FS levels, continue, take out these 22s, and then revert and close, or ahead of the number, revert and just be ready for the number. So I'm thinking a test of this area, a test of this area, come back in the middle for the number. That's pretty much what I'm thinking that we'll see ahead of this data, one of the two, because I think that this low could be taken out, but then we kind of revert. This is the middle of our of this balance area. I'm not expecting us to move away from this ahead of the number. That's not my primary idea. However, it easily could happen. But anyway, we'll go over this first. These are the two ideas for if we get something pretty quiet ahead of the number, which we'd be looking for settle to be tested, then reversion, and potentially the 22s to be tested as well. If we fail, if we attempt the 22s or the 67s and fail at either, that would be a little bit more directional for me, and I'll go over that quickly here. So for example, if we are, a more bullish idea would be if we try lower, but get a higher low versus the 22s, revert above FS levels, hold, especially this area of balance around the 50s, get back above the 50s, get back up and hold above settle. That would obviously be a more bullish stance, kinda, to go into the number. But of course, the number can change anything. So a higher low that continues as well. Likewise, if we would get something like an attempt that doesn't get prior settle really falls down to the 22s and has a lot of trouble there, can't get out and maybe even starts to threaten a little lower, that would obviously be a more bearish stance. Both could obviously just revert the opposite way on the number, but those are the key test areas. Let's talk quickly about if we get any kind of movement outside of these bounds, being prior settle, really about the 75, 76 area and this target. Quick discussion of excursion outside of these levels, which if it happens, I think it'd be more likely to happen after the number. Could happen at any time though. So with any type of a push that clears the prior settle and likely clears the 75s, that reverts lower and then finds any kind of buyers on attempts below prior settle, then moving up higher, the key target for me initially would be the 5100s. On a hold above P settle would be the 5100s. That would be the first key target. And then beyond that, I'd be looking for the magnet zone and this area of 07s up to 23s. This would be my key sort of area, and I would not necessarily expect excursion beyond this area today unless something really interesting comes out with the number. I would kind of expect a bit of balance, maybe an upward sloping balance into the close, maybe a bit of reversion lower. But this area, 07 to 23, essentially our magnet zone, would be my key upside target if we get excursion higher. If this number, if something really comes out differently with like any kind of rhetoric or whatnot, we could obviously go significantly further. But this is what I'm expecting. If the number gets bullish, this will be my key target I'll look to trade for. And if we continue off of that, I'll look for the high of yesterday would be the next one. Convergent members have stock zones that they can use to help gauge excursion outside of areas that are planned for. I create the stock zone, so it's kind of helpful for me. Anyway, let's talk about what happens if we go below this area. So the big key target, obviously, on any type of excursion, like we get anything that falls, gets to the 22s, doesn't really respect the 22s, can't get back into our midpoint area, and falls, the next very key target is obviously the 5,003 3/4, which was a naked weekly settle. This is an area where, again, I would expect support on the initial push and potential reversion higher and maybe even reversal back up into this area. That's certainly possible right here. I would expect support in the first touch. If that does not emerge, then the crucial, like big target below, which we don't necessarily have to get to today. I mean, this is only Wednesday, we have a lot left. Is the 64 targets, because this is our prior month's low. So that would be the target that if we can't hold Millennium, that's where we would work towards. Does not have to happen today. But that's what I'm looking for. Now, of course, keep in mind, we could also have a lot of movement, but nothing really said today, like any kind of a nothing scenario. And obviously, if we do get nothing, I would expect nothing to exist likely between the 03 3/4 settlement and the prior settle of 67s, and really mostly in this area. That's if we get a nothing scenario, like a lot of action in this area. If we get a nothing scenario, it's a little bit more bullish. I would expect the mag zone sentry to shut off the trade. So if we get nothing up higher, it would still be kind of in this area where we just kind of pop above and do nothing. But I mean, we're kind of going over the same ranges. These are kind of the things I'm expecting. I'm thinking that the prior settle and the 75s areas are very key. Above them, we're looking at the sentry and our mag zone region. And below, the key areas are the 22s, the 03 3/4, and if we really start falling, then potentially the 85s, but the 64s are the big ones. So that's the landscape today. A couple other things just to mention today. like I said yesterday, I did not emphasize the short scenario nearly enough. That was a mistake on my part. But what I emphasize at Convergent, things like that, you have to be that, and that's also why I plan the way I do. You have to sort of go over everything, and a lot of it is just for me is a series of recognizing the expected tests, and just as I do here, going over different ways that they could happen. How would you react? What would that suggest? And eventually, it becomes pretty modular. If you're doing the homework, you're kind of always ready for some type for a test or some type of movement. So that's how it goes. But anyway, I got to cut this off because I do continue to go long. But this is our video for today. A lot of data coming out. We're gonna have that all that 10 a.m. data in the morning. Probably quiet down, and then we'll have our number in the afternoon, which could get kind of exciting. But we still have non-farm ahead. So a lot going on the rest of this week. I wish everyone the best of luck. I hope you can improve upon yourself and your trading somehow today. And as always, of course, I hope that you find a way to make someone else smile, because that's really how you can spread some joy in the world. But all of my best to you, and good luck today. Bye-bye.